Hey everybody, Rob Orgel with Silencer Syndicate, and I know you guys have been asking for it, and today we are going to deliver the cat suppressors. Are they worth it? Are they expensive and weird, and there's not a whole lot of good information out there about them? Yes, yes, and yes. Are they worth buying? I don't know. Hopefully today we find out. But specifically today, the question we're asking is the cat, let's call it proprietary, not proprietary style mount. Now, is it worth it? I don't know. I think there's a lot of proprietary out there. And I'm going to start calling it proprietary, even though you could argue that it's not truly proprietary. I'm going to call it proprietary for the remainder of this video. And I don't know. I've seen a lot of guys come out with a lot of stuff, and every time they tell me, well, there's reason behind it. Now, is that good reason, or is that just, them liking their product? Who knows? Today we're going to find out. What I've learned so far is with this proprietary style mount, it's got that reverse thread pitch that we've seen in some other designs, but what's different than many other designs is that they're actually using some of that backward space, kind of like a reflex style design. And with each one of these flutes inside the flash hider, it's pushing those gases up to the outer walls, kind of mushrooming it, driving it rearward into individual channels of that kind of proprietary rearward reflex design. Okay, what does that mean to me? I don't know. Does it make it quieter? Does it make it less back pressure? Today we're going to find out. So I've got my back pressure testing, 16-inch, 14.5-inch for us to run that test. Now at the 14.5, I cannot put this mount inside of it, so I won't know on that. I will know on the 16-inch. Then, does it sound different? Well, we've got a 22-inch bolt action 223, so we can take our ear pro off and see if we can find that sound delta. Do I know the results? Well, I kind of think that hub has always been my best friend and that I can put it on whatever system I like, just kind of fits the by and large. So if you're a chemo guy, a Xeno guy, or an ASR guy like I am, and you 14.5 pin and weld, your hub system's probably gonna win. However, if this reflex does offer some mitigation and back pressure of sound, maybe it's worth investigating. Today we're gonna find out. If you like this kind of content and you wanna know more about CAT, we've got the opportunity to do a full lineup of all of CAT's products, as well as what's going to be coming out later this year. If you want to see that, even some very cool hush-hush guns they might be offering soon, make sure you put more CAT in the comment section, and we'll look into creating that content for you. All right, guys, let's get into it. Position 10 today. Two for the guillotine. Let's start on 8.
That's fine.
5. I was right, that first guess, huh? No hold open on position 7. And what makes this so interesting is we just did this test with the hub mount, and now we're using the QD mount. I'm on position 8 now. I have hold open on 8. So the delta between the standard hub, which is what I'm a fan of, as you all already know, is position 5. Now, we used today the Guillotine. It has very similar back pressure to an Omega 300, a full back pressure standard 5.56 type suppressor, and that's position 2. The unsuppressed setting, no can, no muzzle device, just naked threads, is position 10. So we've got like a 0.9, 0.8 delta back and forth between what is a standard unsuppressed system to a full back pressure suppressor. And I find that 5 is a good position for like the SRBS, the PTR. Those are like, good quality low back pressure suppressors. And the Cat WB hub finds itself right smack dab in the ideal low back pressure. Its sound, its size, there's questions. We'll get back to my opinion of the WB soon. For now, just focusing on, is the QD worth it? Well, it's at position 8 now for a last round hold open. That means there's a 3-tick delta. That means there's more than 30% less back pressure by using their proprietary, not proprietary mount. So as I came into this saying like, look, I'm a hub guy. I don't really care for everybody's proprietary BS. This is probably the first time it's not BS. There's a lot of stuff I've tested just like this, and it's, our hub for our reasons, and we can control these things, and it's better because of it. And I have found that that's a great reason for you to make proprietary stuff. This might be the first. I mean, there's been 10% better, but not 30% better. That is a massive delta. So where I would tell anybody, don't buy proprietary stuff, this may become the exception to the rule. All right, we're going to continue testing. More to follow. Alrighty, so back pressure wise, there is a massive difference, as discussed just a moment ago, between using the hub and using their proprietary, not proprietary style mount. That reflex is obviously doing a whole lot of magic that is very impressive. The next question is going to be, is there a sound difference? Well, to start, we're going to use our AB suppressor with its backwards 4-inch reflex. The reason I like using this sounds like a pellet gun. To me, this is just the cat's meow in wonderful sound. So we're going to start with this. Now, normally we use the Norma 69 grain ammunition because that's kind of more indicative of a bolt action rifle. However, today we're going to use the PMC X-Tac like we usually use and everything else, just because I want there to be a certain consistency, given that those other two suppressors are probably more likely to find themselves on gas AR-15 style rifles instead of this. This just allows us to do a sound test without having the gases bleed from the port. We can really isolate how the suppressor sounds, even from behind the gun. So to kick things off, we're going to start with the AB and 55 grain PMC X-Tac, just to establish a baseline of what's just a magical sounding suppressor. A little bit of information about the build. This is the Ruger American Predator, 22-inch barrel. We put it inside of an MDT chassis, and SIG was kind enough to provide us with this optic. It's I believe it's like a 3-15 or 3-18, something like that. Hog Saddle provided us with their new mount, which is really quite nice. And then Two Vets provided us with a tripod. If you guys want to hear more about tripods, I'm actually kind of a tripod junkie. I teach precision rifle shooting, and I brought out several tripods because I own them and I test them regularly. If you're interested to know what kind of tripods I like and dislike and why, as well as mounting systems, make sure you put a comment in the comment section saying, hey, tell me more about tripods, and I'll happily do it. All right, going live with the 55 grade on the AB. Gosh, that's quiet. It's just like a pellet gun. All right, let's switch out to the Cat hub suppressor. Alrighty. Okay, so now we've got the Cat suppressor. This is the WB 556, and this has the hub mount on it. I can't help but notice it feels more like a K suppressor, especially compared to the AB. Gosh, that's not bad at all. That sounds a lot like that full-size AB without the backwards reflex. I mean, that is a pleasant sounding suppressor. So is their proprietary mount going to sound any different? All right, so now we've got the Cat WB, this time with their proprietary-ish style mount with the reflex. Now we know in back pressure does great, but how about in sound? Deeper pitch. Almost seemed a little bit louder on the first round. It is definitely more pleasant to the ear, but the delta's big. I think I'm going to go back to the hub and do a little bit more side by side again, because that had, I don't know, the more traditional silencer sound to it, but it was very quiet, very pleasant. This suppressor has a much deeper pitch. I want to say it's a hair louder, but because it's deeper, it's almost more pleasant to the ears. Let me do one more, and then I'll switch back to the other suppressor and see if we notice. These Ruger Americans don't like to breech load. May as well top off the magazine. But there was no first round pop on either this one or the hub. And they're both very K-ish in size, and they sound really good, especially for their size. For their size, this sounds ridiculously good. But there's a big delta in the two mounts. Let's do this one again. That's almost like a dull thud. All right, let's go back to the other one. All right, so we hopped back to the hub mount here just to see if we can really isolate a sound difference. Without that mount, it sounds a hair quieter, but it's not quite as deep. It doesn't have the dull pitch. But I mean, I think this sounds a hair quieter. Gosh, I don't know, they both sound so darn good. I'm not sure I hear a huge delta between the two. I want to say the delta is in, maybe it's a hair louder with that mount, their QD style mount, but it's definitely a deeper pitch, both of which are completely non-offensive to the ear. I want to say that the AB has the silencer type pitch to it, you know, that higher pitch, but it's like so darn quiet, it's very non-offensive. But this too is so darn quiet, it's not offensive. Let's do one more test and let's compare it to the PTR 556 because that's another great sounding suppressor. A little bit big, a little bit expensive, but let's screw that on next and see if we can hear a delta. Alrighty, so now we've got the PTR, gosh, I don't remember the vent number this one is. It's the 556 suppressor. We're still on the 55 grain stuff. Let's see if we hear a difference. To me, that seemed a little bit louder. No first round pop at all. It seemed very, very pleasant, but a little bit louder, like a deeper pitch to it, but very, very pleasant. So far, all the suppressors have been very pleasant. Now, if I'd put a K suppressor on this, and I've done it before, I would say, eesh, I don't want to do that again, that kind of hurts. What's interesting is the other suppressors obviously are substantially larger, and the cats are more K-ish in size, but sound incredibly similar to the full-size suppressors. So, I mean, am I hearing a delta in the sound with the mount? Yes, one's a little bit louder, one's a little bit deeper. But let's run the test again. Let's just use heavier grain ammunition and see if that extrapolates a greater delta between the two. But so far, I think for their size and their weight, they're impressive contenders, especially amongst these full-size suppressors. All right, let's run some different ammunition back between the four silencers. Alrighty, so we're switching ammunition. Now we've got the House of Pain ammunition. This is the 77 grain 223 ammunition. Usually I'm more of a 556 guy. I find that you get a little bit more chamber pressure, a little bit hotter velocities out of it. But I find often in like a lot of the bolt action stuff, people tend to do a lot of the 223 stuff. So this is the Sierra Match King open tip, the same stuff that kind of everybody's doing. We should maybe see a delta in the sound. Since the PTR is already on it, I'm gonna start with the PTR, then I'll move to the AB, and then I'll go back to the cats and see if we can find or extrapolate a better delta between the hub versus the QD mount. All right, 77s in the PTR. That sounded much the same on the first round, deep but very pleasant. Same thing, very deep sound, very pleasant, no delta between first round pop and otherwise. Let's switch over to the AB. So the AB suppressor is back on. Kind of regardless of performance, I really like how this looks with the over the barrel reflex. I find it unlikely that I'm going to migrate outside of this, even if there is a sound delta, unless it's like really big. I just love the way this thing looks. Yeah, that sounds so good. To me, that's a pellet gun. Like, that's stupid quiet. That silencer, once I'm done testing it, is gonna end up back on this gun. I love the look, I love the sound. Let's migrate back to the cats, see if we notice a difference. All right, so we're back to the cat. This is the hub, and now we're with 77 grains. That was a very dull thud, duller than before. It's louder than the AB. For sure, but because it's so dull, I think it sounds better than the AB. Think so, Damien?
Yeah. especially for the size.
For the size, yeah, it's incredible. But size aside, I feel like it's a hair louder, but I also feel like it's duller in sound, that if I had to shoot all day, either would be fine, but the AB has the high pitch tsh, and the Cat has a tsh, and even though it might be a hair louder, I would argue it's more pleasant to my ears.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. All right, let's switch out to the QDs. All right, let's see if this pays dividends with that reflex and the 77s. I almost didn't like that one. You know what? I don't think I like that. I think left ear just a little bit of a hee. I mean, I always have that, but it intensified just a hair on first shot and even a little bit on second shot. So I'm gonna say factually now, at least in my experience from behind the gun, the hub sounded definitely better on the 77s. It sounded a little bit better on the 55. Yeah, it's a little bit better on 55. The delta was small. With the 77s, the delta is much bigger. The hub is the way to go on the 77s on this particular setup. Now, of course, you change 1,000 things 1,000 ways, the grain, the barrel length. There's a million ways to play with this, but I think across the board, with the 4 suppressors I just tested, this was my least favorite of the 4. And I think maybe that reflex, per the test we did earlier, back pressure wise, that reflex, it worked wonders. I mean, 30% delta is huge. 30% less back pressure just from switching the mount and using some reflex. That is crazy impressive. But sound wise on 77 on the bolt gun did not make this thing shine. The hub, I don't know, the hub might be, if you made me pick between the 4 silencers we tested, the Cat hub is probably my favorite. It's super tiny, it's super lightweight, and it's hub, so I can prostitute on everything. On the bolt gun, I think that shined the best amongst all the suppressors, even my tried and true favorites, all things considered. And sound-wise alone, I don't know, I think it's between the AB and the hub. I think they both sounded really good. The problem is that AB suppressor, it is a full back pressure suppressor. So if you're not on a bolt gun, it's not so great to shoot on a gas gun or anything semi-automatic. What a huge finding in just the mount alone. All right, we'll do a debrief on this next. Alrighty, so our big takeaways. Yes, this video was about mounting systems and the Cat WB. However, along the way, I just wanted to share a couple other notes. If you want a deeper dive into the Cat WB as far as sound performance and overall performance, again, make sure you comment in the comment section with more Cat, and I'll go deeper into the Cat WB. We also are going to do some more information on the 762, and then if you ask for it, we'll release all the stuff they're probably going to be coming out with this whole calendar year, or at least the bulk of it, as well as a secret weapon that they're working on that really piqued my interest. But mounting alone, the end state that I found is using the kind of tried and true favorites, which are massively different in size, also different in weight. You'll see that there is a huge difference in the Cat sizes versus these other guys. And then sound-wise, on the bolt gun, we were really able to delineate the delta between the reflex backwards design versus the hub. And on the bolt action rifle, the hub was the ticket to success. It sounded great, but the reflex design really performed on the gas guns. I mean, it reduced gas back pressure by 30% in addition to its already low back pressure design. Now, having said that, you know, there's a lot of guys talking about bore evacuators like on tanks. For example, Gemtech did something with an upper, which I have and I tested, and it sort of kind of works. And then they did the same thing on their UXR rifle, and that's through PWS. They've got a bore evacuator, and they combined it with a few systems to be really effective. This used a similar system. However, on a bolt action gun, that means gases are escaping and hurting our ears just a little. Whereas on a semi-automatic rifle, that is actually helping the system, not just in back pressure, but also in sound. So if you're a bolt gun guy, you might say, I want the hub. I don't care about the evacuator. I'm a sealed system. It doesn't matter. If you're a gas gun guy, this, you know, again, I'm not a proprietary guy. I actually hate proprietary. I mean, and there's a lot of good guys who have cracked certain codes. It's still not worth it to me. this might be the only exception to that rule where I say, you know what, this is better than a hub system. This is better than a system you can prostitute because of that 30% additional reduction in gas back pressure. That's hub mount alone is all we're talking about here, the comparison between QD versus hub. If you want to hear my opinions on the cat, what do they call this? The white bread, or 556 cat. If you want to hear my opinions and maybe even do a deeper dive into Inconel as well, make sure you put the more cat, all that good stuff in the comment. I know you guys have been asking. We're finally catching up on our delivery, and we've got a lot more to come. Guys, if you like this content, as always, do the YouTube stuff. Like, comment, subscribe. We really appreciate your support. It's because of the work you're doing in the comments and the likes and the shares that we're able to create more and more content like this, because we absolutely love doing it and we love sharing what we find. All right, guys, stay safe, and we'll see you in the comments.